This module delves deeply into the policy landscape and institutional mechanisms that support or hinder the inclusion of gender and youth in agriculture. It offers a comprehensive analysis of national, regional, and international policy frameworks, identifies critical policy gaps, evaluates institutional readiness, and provides actionable strategies for building inclusive governance systems. The module also explores multi-sectoral approaches, cross-cutting linkages, and alignment with development agendas such as the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and African Union's Agenda 2063. By the end of this module, you will be able to understand the key global and regional policies influencing gender and youth inclusion in agriculture, critically evaluate national agricultural policies from a gender and youth perspective, identify institutional bottlenecks and structural barriers to inclusive policy implementation, explore models of participatory governance and stakeholder engagement, propose policy reforms and institutional frameworks that support transformative inclusion. The role of policy in agricultural development. Policies serve as blueprints for directing investment, resource allocation, and stakeholder responsibilities in agriculture. A gender and youth-sensitive policy environment ensures that historically marginalized groups, such as rural women and youth, can access land, markets, services, inputs, and decision-making spaces. Global and regional frameworks promoting inclusion. A. Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, Goal 1, No Poverty, and Goal 2, Zero Hunger, linked directly to inclusive agriculture. Goal 5, Gender Equality, and Goal 8, Decent Work for All, emphasize the role of women and youth. Goal 13, Climate Action, promotes resilience for vulnerable populations in agriculture. B. African Union Agenda. 2063 recognizes youth and women as drivers of transformation, calls for inclusive agricultural growth and land rights for women, promotes innovation, agribusiness, and policy accountability. C. Malabo Declaration on Agricultural Growth, 2014, calls for inclusive agricultural growth, job creation for youth, and equal access to finance. Urges governments to commit 10% of national budgets to agriculture. CAADP principle. National policy landscape. Achievements and gaps. Many African countries now have gender or youth-specific policies, but their agricultural policies often lack of implementation frameworks, do not reflect the realities of informal, rural women farmers, marginalize youth from mainstream budgeting and planning, do not integrate disaggregated data or gender/youth impact analysis, fail to ensure interministerial coordination between agriculture, youth, education, and finance ministries. Institutional actors and governance structures. A. Key institutions. Ministries of Agriculture, Gender, Youth, and Rural Development, National Planning Commissions, local governments and community land boards, donor agencies, development banks, and multilateral institutions. B. Institutional barriers. Weak interagency collaboration and siloed programs. Low budgetary allocation to women and youth-specific initiatives. Gender-insensitive bureaucratic cultures and limited diversity in leadership. Inadequate training on gender/youth mainstreaming for public servants. The role of policy in agricultural development. Policies serve as blueprints for directing investment, resource allocation, and stakeholder responsibilities in agriculture. A gender and youth-sensitive policy environment ensures that historically marginalized groups, such as rural women and youth, can access land, markets, services, inputs, and decision-making spaces. Participatory policy making and stakeholder engagement. Inclusive policy design requires engaging those affected. Participatory rural appraisal (PRA). Community input in shaping local development priorities. Policy dialogue forums. Creating platforms for youth and women to voice needs and influence policies. Quota systems: mandating representation in planning and implementation bodies. Cross-cutting issues and intersectoral linkages. Policies must address interconnected challenges. Education. Curricula must reflect agripreneurship and climate-smart agriculture. Health. Support for women farmers includes maternal care and sanitation. Infrastructure. Roads, ICT, and energy access determine agricultural competitiveness. climate change, and disaster risk. Vulnerability disproportionately affects youth and women-led enterprises. Best practices and case studies. Rwanda. Gender mainstreaming scorecard used in budget assessments. Nigeria. Anchor borrowers program with women and youth quotas. Ghana. District agricultural development units with youth-led planning. Ethiopia. Land certification projects with women's names included on titles. Policy recommendations for sustainable inclusion. Develop and enforce gender and youth-responsive policy frameworks at all levels. Institutionalize capacity building for government agencies and local institutions. Establish interministerial committees for coordinated planning. Build robust data systems to guide policy based on gender/youth analysis. Foster international cooperation and knowledge sharing. Why institutional support matters. Without institutional accountability and supportive policy architecture, even the most innovative gender and youth programs may collapse or fail to scale. Sustainable change requires not just ideas, but systems, laws, and institutions that are committed to long-term inclusion. Summary. This module emphasizes that gender and youth inclusion in agriculture is not just a moral or social issue, it is a governance and policy imperative. Institutional inertia, policy blindness, and misaligned structures perpetuate exclusion. Strategic, well-funded, and participatory governance is the pathway to transformation.